Hello everyone, I'm Andre and this is my YouTube channel. Welcome. Here we talk about true crime cases. So if that's something that you're interested in, then subscribe and hit that notification button so you don't miss any new uploads. Now, let's get something out of the way. English is not my first language. And also I am very nervous as this is my first video. So hopefully as time goes on, I will learn how to be more confident in front of the camera. Before we start with today's case, I would like to put out a disclaimer that we are talking about real life crimes and sensitive subject matter. The purpose is to inform, not to sensationalize. All the names and the details are from public available sources, and I will present them with respect to the victims and to their families. So viewer discretion is advised. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever thought about how weird parking garages are? You know, the underground ones? Because you're technically home, but not yet. So you're distracted, right? You're thinking about what am I gonna eat? You're grabbing your keys, your bag. You're distracted in that moment. You are not thinking that someone is in the shadows, someone may attack me. Or maybe you do. Sometimes I do that in dark, scary places. For this case, we are gonna travel to El Putxet, which is a neighborhood in Barcelona, Spain. It was the 11th of January 2003 when Maria Angeles Ribet came home from work. She parked her car where she normally does, in the underground parking garage, level -4, spot 15. That was her spot. Somewhere upstairs, her kids are waiting for her. And the kids know their mom, right? She's a responsible person. She follows a schedule. She's never late. So immediately when they realize that mom is pretty late, they think something must be wrong. So they jump into action. They call their dad, who comes in rushing from work, and he tells the kids, he's like, okay kids, go down to the parking garage and see, maybe your mom was feeling ill and maybe she fainted or something like that. Meanwhile, I will stay here and I will call family and friends to see if any of them know anything about your mom. While in the parking garage, Fatima, one of the daughters, notices something shiny close to the door that leads to the street, to the exit of the parking. So she gets closer, and that's when she realized that the shiny thing was her mom's wedding band. Her brother decides to check out the staircase. Maybe the elevator broke down, so the mom took the stairs, right? So he goes up the stairs and he looks down in that space from between the stairs, you know, and he notices something black on the last floor. So he goes down one floor and he looks again. And unfortunately, that is the moment that would change their lives forever. Because in that very moment, he turns to his sister, he starts shaking, and he tells her, there's a hand down there. The authorities get to the parking garage on Bertram Street, number 28, and they direct themselves towards where Fatima and her brother saw the hand. And unfortunately, they discovered that behind the staircase, underneath a black industrial trash bag laid the body of Maria Angels Ribot. Whoever had done this to her was a monster. She was hit multiple times in the head, like her face was almost unrecognizable. She was also stabbed and her purse was missing. So at first, police think that this must have been a robbery gone wrong. So they start combing the area for evidence. Now, what they find here, it's so chilling to me because they found a cigarette butt next to the body. So basically, this guy just committed a brutal murder, right? He just took someone's life. And the next thing he does, he just lights up a cigarette. He smokes the cigarette and then throws the cigarette butt next to the victim. Which to me is insane. Like, what? You are already a monster for taking someone's life. But after you left her almost unrecognizable, you go to the next level and you smoke a cigarette and you throw it on the floor next to her. Like, you tell me what type of monster this is, because this is not stopping here. Trust me, it is about to get way worse. Other things that police have found were 2 bloody shoe prints, one of them on the victim's coat, and a handprint on the plastic bag. The initial theory of the police was that she was most likely distracted when she got out of the car, and then this person appeared from behind, stabbed her, dragged her down one floor behind the staircase, and that's where he brutally hit her with a hammer-like object. We would later find out that the weapon was actually a hammer, you know, the one that has those things in the backs that you can use to take out nails. We also find out, because of the autopsy that was performed, that Maria Angels fought back. She defended herself as much as she could since she had multiple defensive wounds. So we have this terrible crime scene. The kids are traumatized. There's police everywhere. And all of a sudden, the husband of the victim, Antonio, gets a text message from his wife, whose body was just discovered. The text simply said, "I'll call you tomorrow." This guy, he just murdered this man's wife. He stole her belongings, and now he's trying to play some kind of sick, twisted game with the family. Knowing that the killer has the victim's belongings, the police are now waiting for him to use the credit cards so that they could locate him. And soon enough, he did. At just 8 minutes walking distance from the parking garage at a Santander bank, he withdrew 300 euros. Well, after all of this happened, the husband called the bank and he announced the theft so that all of the credit cards were canceled. But this guy doesn't know that. He doesn't know that the family already announced the bank and all the credit cards are canceled. So he doesn't know this. What he does is he goes to another ATM close by and he tries another card. This ATM has a camera. The bad news It's 2003, so the quality is not so great. Basically, all we get from this footage is that he's a young man with dark hair. At this second ATM, he tries again to take out money, but the ATM automatically swallows the card. But this guy is something else. He does not give up. He goes to a third ATM, which basically the same story repeats there. The card gets automatically swallowed by the ATM because it was reported as stolen. Police puts all of this together because what this guy did was basically just leave out a map for police to follow in his footsteps. So when they start calculating the distance between the ATMs and how long it would take to get from ATM 1 to ATM 2 to ATM 3, they realize that it would be too fast for this guy to be on foot. But also, traffic in Barcelona is way too heavy for him to go with the car. So they start looking closer and closer, trying to find an answer. And upon further investigation, there it is. Near every single ATM that this guy visited, there was a subway station. However, while all of this is happening, Antonio, the husband of the victim, gets a call from someone who claims to have information on the case, information about what happened to his wife, and he is willing to share it. Obviously, he wants money for it. 2,000 euros to be exact. Antonio is coached by the police and he asks for proof that this guy indeed knows about what happened to his wife. And this person blurts out 4444. That was Antonio's wife's credit card PIN. Either during the killing or maybe she gave the PIN to him as a way to make him stop. Or maybe she had it noted, on a little paper put in the wallet or in her purse or something. But what's certain is that this guy knew his wife's PIN. So it sounds like he's legit. There's a few calls that take place between Antonio and this mystery guy, with the last one being on exactly where are they gonna do this exchange. Antonio has to leave an envelope with 2,000 euros somewhere, and this mystery guy will leave an envelope with the information on the case somewhere. And they can all, I go there, you go there, and everyone gets what they want. Antonio has to leave the envelope with the 2,000 euros in the bathroom of a pub called Bare Nostrum. And then he would find the envelope containing the information in a phone booth nearby. Everything about this interaction was kind of weird, especially the part where this mystery guy described to Antonio exactly where he's supposed to leave the money. It wasn't just a simple, you go in the bathroom and you put the money there. No. This guy said you go to the bathroom and underneath the sink that looks like this, you put the money. It should be next to a brush that has this color. So everything was described with the smallest of the details. Like, this guy knew exactly how this bathroom looked like. Antonio goes to the pub, to Bare Nostrum, to do his part of the deal. He leaves the money in the bathroom, But while he is there, he's called by the police, who tell him that he should not leave the money because they were already at the phone booth and it was empty. There was no envelope with information regarding his wife's case. While it seems like we are back to square one, that's not entirely true. Antonio spoke with this guy various times. Now police have a few more details on this mystery guy. He sounds like he's in between 20s and 30s. He does not have an accent, and he speaks well. He doesn't make mistakes. There's no hesitation in his voice. So these are all new details that the police can now add to the profile of this guy. Right now, that's all that we have. Now the police are waiting for mystery guy to call again. But that call never came, because unfortunately 11 days after the first murder, on January 22nd, 2003, the killer strikes again. The second victim's name is Maria Teresa de Diego, and on the 22nd of January, she was expressing to her husband that she feels anxious about going to the underground parking garage by herself. Actually, a lot of people have been anxious, especially women, going into their parking garage after what happened with Maria Angels. She asks her husband to, go down with her, get her to the car, and then he can go back to the apartment. But her husband jokingly told her, "Oh, you're exaggerating, nothing's gonna happen to you." After a while, the husband got a weird feeling, so he decides to go down to the parking garage, where he would see that his wife's car was still parked, and there was no sign of her. Eventually, he starts looking for her, and he will find his wife's body in the exact same spot where Maria Angel's body was left. Again, covered with a black industrial trash bag. One interesting detail is that Maria Teresa de Diego and Maria Angels had the same number for their parking spot, the number 15. The only difference was that Maria Angels was on level -4 and Maria Teresa was on level -1. At the sight of his wife's body, Ruperto Bilbao, the husband, just went insane. He ran into the street and he started screaming, "It's my fault, I killed her, I killed her." Can you imagine this man's pain and the guilt that he lives with? Because he's probably thinking, "Oh my God, if I would have gone with my wife like she asked me to, probably she would still be alive." And that type of guilt is just something that can easily just eat you alive. I feel like in cases like this, whenever there's a lot of what ifs, that's something very, very difficult to deal with. So I hope that the husband finally found his peace, to say so, and he realized that it was not actually his fault. The police arrive again at the parking on Bertram Street, number 28. And as I said, this crime scene is similar to the first one, but it's actually worse. So this guy is escalating. They need to find him, and fast. So they start putting things together. the victims look alike, same age range, same type of car, same parking, even the same spot, just with the 3 floors difference. If this guy sticks to his ways, he will probably try using the credit cards. So the police are monitoring the activity of Maria Teresa de Diego's cards, and then again, this guy tries to use a credit card. It gets swallowed. So he goes to another ATM close by and he tries again. What he didn't realize, again, this ATM had a camera. It was just like in the first case. This ATM had a camera, and actually on this footage, police get a new clue about this guy. He has a bald spot on top of his head. And I know you might say, oh, what type of clue is that? A lot of people have that bald spot on top of their head. But trust me, this is very important, so remember the bald spot. This will be important later. So all of it overlaps. Same area, same few streets, and now they know this guy uses the subway to move between these ATMs. So what they do is they start asking for all the stores, all the subway stations and everything around this area to give their footage. If they had cameras, they had to give the footage to the police. So police find the guy on a subway footage where they see the bald head, and based on the hour that and the ATM that he used, based on the hour, they realized, okay, this is our guy. So they saw the bald spot and they were like following this guy on the footage, and this guy all of a sudden he's like looking through something, looks like a wallet, and all of a sudden he stops and he goes back. So police are thinking, what was that? What is he doing? Well, he was actually looking through Maria Teresa de Diego's wallet, and he found the card that he did not try. So he was going back to another ATM to try the card. As I mentioned before, it's 2003. The quality of the image is not great, but they get an idea of what this guy's face looks like, and they also have the clue about the bald head. You will see later in the case why I keep mentioning the bald head. It's gonna be important. Now police have this grainy looking image of this guy, and well, with all of this new information, they switch their attention to the first case, specifically to the phone calls that Antonio, the husband of the first victim, received. Because if you remember, this guy asked Antonio to bring an envelope with 2,000 euros to a pub and leave it in the bathroom. When he described the bathroom, he described it to the smallest detail. This guy was very familiar with the place. What police decide to do is, okay, we are gonna put a couple of undercover cops in the bar, in the pub, Bar Nostrum, and we will see if someone who looks like the image that we have, if someone shows up. Well, guess what? He did show up. One day, while the undercover cops were there, chatting, drinking something, there's this guy that walks in. He says hi to everyone, he makes jokes, he shakes hands with the bartender, and it just seems like he owns the place, you know? He's very familiar with it. And at some point, he actually goes to a closet and he opens it. He takes out a pool stick to play. And police are thinking, this guy looks kind of like the picture that we have. And he seems to be very familiar with the place. Now comes the most important detail. So as this guy is getting ready to play pool, you know, he puts the stick and he leans forward. Well, guess what? One of the lamps in the Mare Nostrum pub reflects the light exactly on that bald spot on top of his head. At that moment, the police that are undercover in the bar are like, okay, we got him. This is him. Like, it looks like him. He has the bald spot. Now, what do? We can't arrest someone because they have a bald spot. Immediately, the police set up a fake operation outside on the street. They are telling people that they are looking for a fugitive. And they ask everyone that passed through there to present their ID. When this guy leaves the pub, he has to go through the police setup. So he goes through there, police asks for his ID, and he gives his ID. Our suspect is 24 years old, Juan Jose Perez Rangel. Now that they have his identity, police can start investigating him. And almost immediately, they find out how he had access to the underground parking garage. Because I don't know how it is in other countries, but in Spain, only the people that have a parking spot in the parking garage get a key. Like, you have a special key for the elevator, you have the remote for like the big gate of the garage that opens. So what they discovered is that Jose Perez indeed had a parking spot, but he did not have it anymore. He wasn't paying for it anymore, but he kept the keys. Now, an interesting fact about this is that this guy does not own a car and does not own a driving license. Now, the police know how he gained access to the parking garage. They start investigating further and further and discover that he lives with his parents and he worked as an accountant, making a pretty decent pay. It was like 1.8 thousand euros, which for Spain in 2003 was a lot of money. But he actually quit his job 3 days before the first murder took place. Now there seems to be a problem. Police are gathering all of this information as they get ready to arrest this guy, but the press seems to have found out some critical information and we're getting ready to release it. Police, obviously, they gather all of the evidence that they have and they go to arrest Juan Jose Perez Rangel. Juan Jose Perez Rangel gets arrested while in a car with his mother. Imagine you're this guy's mother and you're like, okay, son, let's go grab some lunch. Let's go do some shopping. And he's like, okay, mom, but we go with your car because I don't have a driving license and I don't have a car. So they both get into his mother's car and they start driving. when all of a sudden they get surrounded by police cars. The police are getting out of the cars, they come towards them, and they arrest Juan Jose Perez Rangel. I can't even think about what his mom's reaction was, because I couldn't find anything about her reaction, but I would imagine that she was probably stunned. The police explains everything to his mother, and then they take both of them to their apartment, to Juan Jose Perez Rangel's parents' apartment, to be witnesses while the police conduct a search warrant. So when they get to the apartment, everything is pretty normal, right? There's nothing that grabs their attention, to say so. Up until they get to this guy's room. Police could barely open the door because his room was so messy. He had all kinds of stuff just on the bed, on the floor, everywhere. It was all dirty, smelly, messy, and police managed to open the door and start looking through his stuff, and they found a little agenda. It turns out that this guy was actually keeping notes about the times when he went to the parking, who he encountered, age, do they look poor, do they look rich, what type of car they drove, their parking space, their license plate, if there were a man or a woman. So he was keeping this agenda, he was keeping notes on everything. The police also found in the agenda the notes he had made on the two victims. I think I forgot to mention this. The second victim was an owner of a gym, right? So police found inside Juan Jose Perez Rangel's room publicity, like a flyer that was publicity for that gym. So he went to her gym, took out a flyer, and, well, we don't know, probably he first saw her in the parking garage, and then he followed her to the gym. Anyway, this guy was studying everyone that went into the parking so that he could choose his perfect victim. After his arrest, many neighbors had come out and said, you know what? I actually met that guy in the parking garage. Like, I was there, I saw him with his little agenda. He was writing some things, but I never thought that that was something weird, because obviously you don't immediately assume that someone is a killer when you meet them in an underground parking garage. So they thought that maybe this is someone that owned the place there. Now, remember how I told you that at the crime scene they had found cigarette butts? Well, turns out DNA is a match. Prints are a match. But Juan Jose Perez Rangel claims he's innocent, and he has an alibi. What was his alibi, you ask? Hold on for this one. So it turns out that months before the first crime took place, he used an agency to meet a bride from a certain Eastern European country. And as it turns out, on the 11th of January, he was supposed to pick her up at the airport. And, well, that was his alibi. He was at the airport meeting his future bride. And it's true. Well, part of it is true. He was indeed at the airport. Only a few hours late, dirty, and with his face full of scratches. Even though he arrived late, dirty, and with his face full of scratches, he was there. He picked up his bride. Obviously, she asked what happened to him. He said, "Oh, just got into a little car trouble, car accident. So that's it. Nothing weird, like I just killed a woman or something." So he takes her to a hotel, but eventually he runs out of money. So now he takes his future bride to his parents' apartment. Remember how I told you that his room was disgusting? Well, he took her there and she stayed there for 11 days. Turns out they were not a match. So this girl is flying back to her country on the 22nd of January. Remember what else happened on the 22nd of January? Exactly. The second murder took place. The trial of Juan José Pérez Rangel started on the 8th of November 2004, and it was quite short. It was 6 sessions, I guess you would call them. However, it was short, but still, this guy maintained his innocence. And one of the craziest theory he and his lawyer launched was that he was not the killer. He was being framed, and who was actually guilty was the second victim's husband, Ruperto Bilbao. From the information that I gathered, Ruperto Bilbao was not in the room when this guy suggested that he was guilty, because he claims that Ruperto Bilbao has a criminal record. So this guy claims that Ruperto Bilbao has charges of assault and now, one thing that I think is really important to mention is that the press on this case, just insane. Obviously, this was a very mediatic case, and the press was all over it. So the press starts putting out articles saying that Ruperto Bilbao might be involved in his wife's murder. Now, the husband has fought to clean his name and prove that he does not have a criminal record, and he felt as if he was being mistreated by the judicial system in Spain at the time. Despite all of Juan José Pérez Rangel efforts, he was still found guilty by a jury. He was sentenced to 52 years in prison, which was the maximum in Spain at the time. However, it is expected for him to be released around 2035. So he's gone, but the neighborhood never really goes back to normal. People don't linger in parking garages anymore. They close the door faster behind them. They grip their keys tighter. And honestly, if you're a woman, you have probably did this a million times. You're coming home from work and it's late. You have to go into a sketchy alley or something, and you just grab your keys tight and you are ready to punch even a shadow if it gets too close to you. That honestly happens to me. Whenever I am out at night, I'm just like ready to fight. So this was today's case. Let me know what you think in the comments. Also, feel free to leave suggestions for future cases. I will read all of the comments. As I mentioned before, this case is from Spain. So if any important information got lost in translation, please feel free to let me know in the comments so that I can make sure that everyone is informed correctly. So until next time, because I do hope there's a next time that I'll see you around here, I want you to take care of yourself and stay safe. Bye.